Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Growth Support. It's been a little while, but I'm super excited to be back. And this conversation was a super fun one with Lizzie Keiper talking about creating community and the culture around it as well. We dove straight in, so we'll just do the same here. It was a super enjoyable conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having the conversation with me. We already started talking. We're like in the middle of it already.
I know we can't stop. We're like, oh no, wait, we need to
No,
record
no, we
this.
might as well.
No,
But
it's
you
great.
were saying community. You really dive in. You really start. I mean, we're just gonna jump in, but I think
Yeah.
before you recap what you just said, maybe introduce yourself for people who don't know who you
Oh
are. A little
yeah,
brief
maybe.
summary.
People know who I am and why I'm here. Hey everyone, I am Lizzie Keiper. I am the director of events for Support Driven. I have been a longtime community member for almost 8 years now, I think. And in 2022, I came on as the director of events, and it's been a really interesting time to go from community member to then on the other side of trying to make the make the events that I attended as a community member happen. And so it's been a really fun journey. And Neil reached out and was like, "Hey, let's talk about community. Let's do it." And so I'm down to do that. Talk about all things community, is especially from someone who is uniquely on both sides of it, of just reaping the rewards and diving into meeting a community like this, and then getting the opportunity to help create and foster connections on the other side.
Nice. I love it. Also, I think you're super like the Lizzie in a sense of like everybody knows you in the community, and
Aw.
you create that, right? That's super super cool.
Mhm.
Did
Thank
you
you.
say
It's
that?
something.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's something that is so interesting to me, because it's just so, because it's just like, I mean, words, what do I want to say here? No, I love that. It's so fun that it's really cool to be able to connect with everyone at Support Driven, like on an individual level too, in addition to, me being like, hi, I have all the information about all the events we're doing. Let's talk about it. But being able to like also pop into the fun channels and and just do that. And so it's a great, I'm lucky to be able to have fun while also have to be like, hi, these are important. I need you to register, or I need, speakers, do this, or, those type of, I'm lucky in that I can do that fun balance of like, hi, I need stuff. And hey, let's just talk about Taylor Swift's new album. So,
Let's do it.
yes.
I mean, we were just having that exact same conundrum right now, right? Like we started
Mhm.
talking and we were just diving into things already, and then we're like,
Yeah.
oh wait, we have to officially like press the
Oh,
button.
wait, we are here to record this. We should do that. Hey. Yeah, so I know we were talking about it. Neil initially reached out to me a few months ago to kind of to come on the podcast and talk about community. And that's one of the things I love about this community in general, is that we can be like, hey, Neil came to me like, hey, I am going to be responsible for community for my company. And how do I do that? Like, hey, can I get some advice? What are we doing? I have to figure out this new way of interacting. And and it's very different than support tickets. It's totally different. The skill sets are related, but it is very different and nuanced, and like, and so I think it really speaks to the community in general, that we can be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but oh, I have people I can talk to, I'm sure. And that's really cool. And so I'm really excited to see over the past couple of months and hear from you, Neil, how that's going. As I know, like, you've had to dive in at scale too. So it's not that you're starting a community from like person one and having to slowly grow and grow and grow, but you have thousands, because it's users of your product, right?
Yep, indeed, indeed.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it was quite an
Yeah.
interesting turn of events, very exciting.
Hmm.
For me, yeah, I think what you mentioned, that it is a very similar experience, a bit of support, because you are really trying to foster that connection with people in a human moment. At the same time, you're creating two different things, right? In support, I had this conversation with one of my community managers as well. Is like, in support, you're trying to not mitigate tickets, but just keep it as efficient as possible and just make sure
Yeah.
that time is really, really being spent valuably. And then in community, you're trying to do a little bit the opposite of like, okay, now you're going to get a lot more volume because you want the volume, you want the engagement, you want it to be there.
Yeah.
A little bit of a shift of mindset and like changing the both, right? You're really trying to drive that engagement aspect.
That's such a great view of it, of the two sides of the coin, because for community, you want to spend more time. Like, you want people to spend more time with you. You want, like, you're like, I want more touch points, I want more interaction, I want more engagement. It's all about, you still want it to be meaningful, but the more people engage, the more engaged they are, for lack of
Yeah.
a better term. But that's so interesting how that foils to traditional support, where you're actually trying to, if you're doing proactive and reactive support strategies, you're trying to reduce the number of touch points. How long does it take us to solve something? The dream is one touch. Or actually, the dream is they don't have to talk to you at all because it's just done, which is, never going to happen because we're all humans.
It just works.
And it never just works at all. So sometimes it does, which we're lucky, but there's always a human that's needed. And so it's so interesting to actually, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it makes a lot of sense that you literally have to flip the thinking of efficiency drives the most. Like, if efficiency is one of your top things, you still want to be efficient in community, but one of the things is, like, if one person gets meaning out of what you do in a community, that's important and that's valuable, versus the scale of, like, I want to close X number of tickets and make sure that everyone's there and we're done. Like, that's very, yeah, no, that's a really great way to put it, of the two different strategies. I love that. I'm going to borrow that. That's great.
The
Yeah.
way that I've been thinking about it is there's a couple of different things, right? Like, we were really looking at, like, okay, what will success for the community look like, and what are some of the
Yeah.
problems that we're facing right now? And I'm really curious to understand your difference of going from member to staff, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing, the way that we're looking at it is, we don't have an engagement problem because there are people engaging. What we
Awesome.
have is a usage problem. So engagement
Okay.
versus usage is two different things in that sense, because we were looking at it and we were like, hey, there are a lot of people posting, but there's not a lot of people commenting. But then thinking about it of, is that a bad thing though? Because if you think about it, what you mentioned before, if you have somebody post a question, but the one answer that they get is like really medium, really solid, and really good, and that
Yeah.
really helps them, maybe that's all they need, right? But I think
Mhm.
when you talk about engagement and connections and fostering this engagement, it's a little bit different in different places, right? Because every community or every company has community in some form or another. They're
Mhm.
widely different.
Very.
Like, I know some communities like support driven that have very 50-50. This is industry and functional knowledge, and then we have variety and spice and social
Yes.
channels as well. And then there are
Yeah.
some companies that are like, no social, no variety, it's just, we're here to get the job done, service and go.
Mhm.
And that looks very widely different.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's even a third that's an offshoot of that second one, that is, you know, it's the wrong way to do it, in my opinion, which is, let's throw up a community and just let the users help themselves with no real oversight. Like, if they're not staffing it with people, with official people from the company who can actually help that. Because to your point of, engagement is good, people are answering those questions, but bottom line, you want to make sure, for the success of the community, that if someone is reaching out for help, they at least that like someone picks that up. And so, you may be lucky in that your fellow community members that are also users, that are your customers, are down to do that and help them. Or but if that's not the case, and that is a very lucky thing, you can't count on that. And I think that's where a lot of companies who spin up communities and view it as purely this like self-help forum with very little actual company engagement in it in an official capacity, do it wrong, and it lands flat and it's not there. And some of the ways, some places do that. I mean, like Google's one of the top ones that do that, and they have mixed levels of engagement from official Google or anything on their different, self-help forums that they have. But I think, for you and talking about engagement versus usage, like for me, one of the things would be if I actually had, if I staffed it, and like if I actually had like the bandwidth to actually have like community managers and things, that one of the things that I would make sure would be if there's a question out there, no one feels like they're just left hanging out there without help. Like they're just like they're calling into the void and no one's coming back, because fundamentally, like you want your community, if the goal is for it to have users help each other and create this, deeper engagement with your overall brand and product, the way people feeling and getting that immediate value out of, hey, I'm stuck on this, or what is this workaround, or what is this? And the best scenario is that another community member responds to that. But if they don't, then the community manager needs to step in and help. And I think that's really key. And I think that's a point where, companies who want to spin up communities but don't actually realize that like it takes work and strategy, and you need to staff it. Like you need to have people monitoring that, and it can't just be free community moderators of your community unless you have that relationship with them. It takes time to build that up, and you need to be reinforcing that value through every interaction as possible. I think it depends on the scale, but that's the biggest thing, is like if people will continue engaging and continue coming back if they feel that if they reach out, they will be helped. And that will also translate to, oh, hey, this person helped me. Like I was helped when I was stuck here. They see, they're more likely. And this is what the magic of support driven is, truly, is we are, as I say, we're helpers helping helpers. And we are, support people in natural. We just want to help. Like that's like from the fundamental thing is like we see a problem or we see an opportunity and we just want to help you. And so when someone throws out a question or anything like, or is like, I'm stuck or I'm struggling or I don't know what to do, we thankfully are a group of people who are already predisposed to being like, oh, hey, I want to help, so that we're going to figure it out. And so, that hasn't been, I mean, there are some niche questions that like maybe no one knows, like no one knows what's going on, but someone usually chimes in with like, maybe this, or like maybe something. And
just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe there's this thing. And that, for me, what I've seen is from as a member myself, when I went into a company as the only manager, the only person thinking and living and doing support. And I was alone in my company as it was up to me to build a team to then figure out how to support apps, because we were website only. And then we decided to launch mobile apps, and then we launched all these other things. And I was like, how does someone handle app reviews? I have no idea. I just would do this. And I was able to be like, hey, how do y'all like monitor and respond to them? Like, is it really just that I got to do this? Because this experience is horrible. And everyone's like, yeah, unfortunately, that's what it is. But I was able to go to the community and say, hey, I have no idea how to do this, and I got to figure this out. And I was able then to be better at my job and be like, okay, hey, let's do this, and be able to implement, a scalable-ish ability to support this new product that they're launching, and in a way that was meaningful and possible with my small team. And but that right there, I was like, wow, okay, I'm not alone anymore. And that was huge and helped my confidence and helps that. And then I was also from that point forward, if I saw a question and I was like, oh, wait, I think I know that answer. I'm more likely to be like, oh, hey, well, what if you tried this? And it's like the paying it forward, kind of thing. But it's reciprocal in that, and so that is why I think, it's definitely engagement versus usage is that's a good way. It's a really important balance to find. And one of the key things when a community is new, you have to, as a community manager, you know, really make effort into supporting until it can kind of like get on that train and then like just keep cascading with the organic engagement that will happen.
I, I love there's a couple of things that you said.
Yeah.
One, the when you join and when you get that first realized, I'm stuck. Like the reason I joined support driven as well was because I was like, I'm kind of alone in this journey, and I want to find people that are like me and also going through similar things. Like,
Yeah.
I was debating between a career between operations and supports, like revenue operations
Mm,
and supports. So I went out
yeah.
and I was like, I'm going to join a bunch of communities. I'm going to see what the industry culture is like. And yeah, I joined a bunch, and on the two different sides, I was like, "Oh, support industry culture way, let's go."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
That's such a good
100%.
point.
But
Yeah,
I,
the
I think
culture is
one of
great.
the key reasons for that as well is because when I did join, when you get welcomed and you get that first initial like really warm touch, it is really you create that sense of connection and that you start building those long-term relationships. Most of the people that I talk to now are people who, when I joined, started engaging with me. And now I still talk to them on a very almost daily basis of like building these relationships. And that's where true
Mhm.
community, I think, it's
Yeah.
outside of the forums, right? The things that you're able to do. And I think one of
Mhm.
those things that you mentioned as well is, hey, when somebody has a question, maybe I don't know how to answer it, but I saw somebody else did, and I'm going to tag them and say, hey, maybe you can help with this. I think this is a very important thing, which would be engagement versus orchestration. And as
Ah,
a community manager, you have engagement, like, hey, I'm going to engage with this post, make sure that no question goes unanswered, because every person who asks a question needs to get that value of getting unstuck. And but if I don't know and I want members to engage with other members, I'm going to tag a member and not engage myself. One of the things that I realize in our community, for example, we help HR professionals get unstuck, be better at their day jobs.
yeah.
One of the things that I realize is people stopped commenting when our SMEs just answered and answered and answered and answered because they were just reliant. They're like, hey, one of the SMEs is going to answer it. It's a Q&A forum. It's not a community, right? And I think
Ah,
that's one of the big differences between a community like support driven, where I'm tagging like, hey, maybe interesting for you, somebody else or something like this, because it doesn't come from the team. It
yeah.
comes from a genuine, hey, like sense of collective community in a sense.
That is that's such a great call out in that, it's important for things to get answered, but you have to find that balance of like what will accidentally de-incentivize engagement. You're like, oh wait, I'll wait for the official answer, or it's like, no, but that's a really great way where that's one thing that is a great point of nominating others to help. And so, that's something that I do, but I didn't even really think about it intentionally. It was just like, hey, someone has a question about, completely overhauling their Zendesk and instance, and I'm like, oh, hey, I actually know someone who did that and has like spoken about this at our previous events. I'm going to tag them in because I'm sure they can help. And and that and like and then they did. They had like a whole thread about it, and it was great. And that is something that really does create those organic moments of a balance between like nomination or recommendation, and that's a great way to balance that and to encourage that when you are finding the Q&A trap. That you
Nice,
yeah.
nice trap, right? I think
Yeah.
one of the other things as well is, for example, uh, community, when we were looking at it, where when you think about engagement in a sense, like when you foster, I actually had this conversation, I think, in one of the random threads of support driven,
Yeah.
where there was like a whole conversation going on, and then they were like, yeah, but there's so many people in here, and I was like, but are there really? Like the level or difference of people who really really engage and are really really active is much
Hmm.
smaller than the total population that's in there. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think some people are like, "Oh, we need the entire population to engage. We need like we got to get all this engagement from everybody." And they get into this trap of like, "How can we do that?" But I
Hmm.
think instead of looking at it on this grand, huge, big scale of everybody, one of the things that's has been super top of mind for me is not, I don't need to engage everybody, or you don't need to engage everybody. What the way that you can do it is to think about who are the top engagers and just facilitate and foster them as much as possible. Pump them up, get the do-gooders to do even more good, engage and go.
You figured it out. That
Peace
may be what
out.
happened with you. It's support driven. But no, that's really true. And I also want to call out that like there is also, just because people aren't necessarily commenting, the ability for them to just leave an emoji or to lurk. We have a lot of community members who get a ton of value out of just reading, the
Well,
typical lurkers.
we
And yeah, and
we
that
did
is
this.
something. Go ahead.
Sorry. We did this exercise. We did a community survey to see what people, how they wanted to engage with it. The number one top answer from the survey was, "I want to read discussions other people are having." They
Yes.
just want to
Yep.
learn. They just want to read it.
Yeah. I think, and I think that's also human nature too. You want, I think, if you walk up to a group of people in person, you're going to kind of feel around, you're going to kind of listen, you're going to see like, okay, where do I fit in this? Like, like what are they talking about? Let's hear. Oh, maybe do I have something to contribute to that? And I think that, that in-person experience translates to online in this way of, hey, I'm going to pop in, and if I'm warmly welcomed, that's amazing. But I'm going to kind of feel out like I'm going to feel out that engagement. What is that like? What are the conversations people are having here? What are the norms? What are those things? And I think there's always going to be that period online as well. And it translates from in-person to online. And that really matters in that, just because someone isn't engaging doesn't mean they don't matter. And that is, and I think that speaks to engagement can't be your only metric for success, gaining membership. But as you said, I mean, getting 100% engagement is literally impossible. It will never happen. And you think about it, like, when do you ever get 100% of anything? And,
CSAT.
like, CSAT is that, and, but when you're relying on other people engaging, you're always going to have the people who just don't want to. And, or not that they don't want to, but for them, reading is enough. And like that's the amount of effort they need. They just want to look and see, can I search to see if maybe this question has already been answered, or have people had conversations about this already? Then they'll go look, and if they get what they need, then they're good. And that's also, that's a success too. Harder to measure, but it's much harder to measure. But it's something that it makes a lot of sense. And I'm really glad you called that out, because I think that's also a trap. Or like, well, I have to constantly, like, the engagement graph constantly has to go up, which is like what you're really going for is an unattainable goal. And then you're like, okay, well then like a certain number of percentage, it reminds me of like the open, like market, like one of the biggest things with marketing is when you send emails, what the open rate is. And open rates, a good open rate is like 20%. Like, it is shockingly low from someone who
Yeah, I
comes
mean,
from
it's the
support, where
80/20
everything
rule.
is so exactly. And so it's so interesting to me that, like, you're going for 100 is setting yourself up to fail and to be frustrated. And it's something that, and you're also going to spend your effort and time and money and all the things you going after something that isn't going to return. And so that's a great point. Yeah, I think
So
yeah.
you mentioned that when you joined Support Driven and you started
Mhm.
asking your first questions and you started getting that help and then you starting to answer other people's, you said it really boosted your confidence.
Mhm.
I have a question around that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, for people who are lurkers, right? When you mentioned the social setting in person, you join a group, you start to kind of scope things out, see how it's going. But
Mhm.
there can be this entry barrier, right? Of okay, I've maybe asked a question, I've maybe got helped, but answering my first question might be really difficult.
Yeah.
How do you think you can lower that entry barrier for people answering their first questions?
Ooh, I love this question. Um, a couple ways. I think, um, that's a great question. How do I manage this? I think this would be there are a couple options. I think, you know, I mean, to keep the metaphor of in person, one of the things that works really well is if you're in a group and someone comes up, and a new person is trying to join this, the group of people talking, they'll feel it out. And what works the best is when someone who is in the group already invites them to speak or contribute and gives them basically an introduction, but like a warm kind of like, hey, like basically like reaches a hand out, like, hey, come join us. Like I want you to join. I want you to do this with us. And so I think, the initial way we do that is, welcoming people in the welcome and introductions channel. But I think the real way we do that is if when we see new people engaging, it's the people who have been around for a while making an effort to be sure to engage back. And so if someone does like if someone new does pipe in a thread, like respond to that and validate it, genuinely. If it doesn't, like don't just do it, but like, all this is all like genuine, good, real
Yeah,
conversation.
best case scenario.
Yeah, yeah, best case scenario. And so, you see them do that. If someone new comments and then someone who has just who has a longer term presence or a bigger presence in the community chimes in and backs that up, says, thank you so much for sharing. That's a really great point. That's really great. And then chimes in with your own, or like, oh, hey, I was thinking the same thing. And that right there takes, I think takes like, I mean, will actually make the person feel welcome. And, you know, and so, but that works after they've actually made that leap into doing the thing. And so to get that initial engagement, it's really going to be modeling the behavior you want in the community and encouraging the behavior you want in the community with other community members. So it's not, as you called out, you noticed that when your SMEs were answering everything, it actually de-incentivized other people from chiming in. So you then are like, oh, wait, hold on. We need to actually leave space and time for other people to actually do the thing. And then, in some communities, you have the function of, depending on what software you're using, you have the ability for, a if you're using like a forum as something or something where, you as the admin can actually like nominate the best answer. And that's the one that comes up. And so, and if that's an answer from an actual community member, that's awesome. It elevates them, it elevates their credibility, it elevates that they feel warm and fuzzy because they know like, oh yeah, my answer was picked and it was right. Everyone loves a good pat on the back, and so that's when, that's if people can see the behavior that you want modeled of, hey, like people really are just chiming and helping each other, and it's not always the same people, then that creates an open door for them. And and if someone, depending on how they want to engage, ideally if they did fill out, and share a little bit about themselves in their welcome bio, or welcome post, then that makes it a little easier because people can also ask them like, oh, hey, I see that you work for X, or like, have you had to deal with this before? And so it just takes maybe an established community member actually like asking them a direct question. And that could be in a DM too. It could be, we're great where we have a lot of open conversations, but we've got DMs all over the place too. So, everyone's talking to each other, which is great. But I think, that's one of the benefits of putting the effort in and encouraging the effort of people to warmly introduce themselves. So there's more context, so that people can have that opportunity to invite them to share their knowledge. In addition to, in addition to just waiting for someone to like feel brave enough to contribute.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you do welcome them into the space in that sense, and really start to educate them on how to do it. I've also seen a few others, like for example, in code of conduct and guidelines and things, say, "Hey, here's how you can, provide
Yeah.
good answers. Here's how you can do it," and educate them there as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely really real. And it's something that, the code of conduct is enforced by the whole community. And that is something that, and it's not enforced in a way that is, mean or anything. It's like the first step is to educate. Oh, hey, did you know? It's like this is the thing. Don't do that. And primarily, I mean, I will say we're very, very lucky in that we are a very, very good group of humans. And this is like support driven is a very rare thing, where most everyone, far majority of almost everyone is engaging in a genuine way, which is amazing and very lucky, and a very good group of humans. And it just speaks to the people in it. And but our number one issue is vendors coming in and DMing people to try to sell their stuff, which, we made a rule about in our code of conduct. But like, if that's our number one problem, fantastic. Like,
It's a good
that
problem.
like it's something that, I mean, obviously I don't want that behavior to be happening. That's annoying and spammy and gross, but it's a clear thing that our community can help self-police, or self-manage, and call out. And then we also, I mean, we do also enforce it. So you get, you get warned, and then if you keep doing it and not engaging in a way that makes sense, you're done. And that's, but that's how you also protect the community, the integrity of the community. If this was a place where people were always getting bombarded with sales pitches, that dramatically reduces the value and the
Big turn off.
overall experience. It just sucks. I mean, like our email inboxes are constantly full of stuff we don't want to see. And so like, yeah, you're going to skim it. You're not going to spend as much time in there, for a clear metaphor. And if that was the case in a community where you're really trying to surface the right stuff, and then so the other issue is, someone asks a genuine question and then all the vendors comment wanting to sell stuff. And you're like, no, please don't do that. That's not how we foster actual engagement here. If you just like, and so but that's very different. Like this type of engagement and the fact that like so many places on the internet, the only way for salespeople to engage is through those spammy type messages. Like it's the strategy of just like, I'm gonna cold call or whatever out there, and a percentage will bite. And as part of support driven, we very, I think fundamentally it's just like that is the wrong way to do it, and we don't like it, so we don't want it. And that is just because it's just a bad experience for like everyone, truly.
Yeah, I think that's what makes things more genuine, right? Because you do want it to
Yeah.
be genuine and authentic and
Yeah.
from a good, respectable place in that sense as well.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
talked a little bit about a couple of traps
Yeah.
throughout our conversation. And
Yes.
one, like as a long-standing member of for example, support driven or our community in
Hmm.
general, you said you've seen it evolve a lot over time. And I think for somebody who's starting out in community or building a new community,
Hmm.
sometimes they get into this trap of like, oh, I need to have all these channels. I need to set everything up. I need to get everything perfect so that people can engage and go from there. And having
Yeah.
this like completeness trap in a sense of
Oh,
let's get it all out there. But I think
yeah.
uh, how have you seen sport driven evolve in terms of like did you start quite fully in that sense? Did it has it changed quite a lot from what it was?
Um, from my experience, I think it's ebbed and flowed over time. So, I mean, one of the things I really loved is that it really, from the moment I started, I saw that there was professional channels where people were talking about work stuff and, and really trying to solve some weird things. But there was also a lot of engagement in the social type channels. So, like X food, like, all the different, fuzzy friends, there's all these different, in what I really loved and I think resonated with was that it was both that like we are complete humans. And so like we are both our work selves and our personal selves. And it was such a cool place to see both being celebrated and encouraged. And that is one way that I think, quote unquote, the off topic channels, I think that's one of the purposes and that they serve and can be extremely valuable. In certain communities, obviously tailored to what your community wants and actually wants to engage with. But that was one thing that I have seen steady engagement in those channels, and even the kind of the socially but still work related channels like Good News or Vent, where it's
Hey,
just kind of like
my first post after my introduction was in Vent, and it had like 100 comment thread of just
it was a hit. Yes. Exactly. And it's something that, sometimes you just need to vent. And I think that's something that is a really interesting balance because a vent channel can turn really toxic really fast. And ours mostly hasn't, which is great in my experience. I will say I'm a human, so I don't necessarily remember everything, but my experience in it has been it's just validating. It's just, we are a group of humans who care so much and have a lot of times been told that we care too much. And posting in there, some of the best things in there are about just needing a little validation that like it's okay to care as much as you do, and this is really frustrating, and like we're here, I see you, I'm here for you. And the way that we also like, wait, hold on, do you want me to solve the event, or are you just needing to like yell at a cloud, like what's happening? And I think I even did this to you, I think earlier this week, where you posted something and I was like, oh oops, not to solve the event, but maybe this will help. And so,
Very welcome. Very welcome.
and so I think it's one of those spaces where it's like also, I think it's where we also practice a really great mental health technique of, asking for that expectation of, hey, do you just need to talk it out, or do you need help to solve? Where I think a lot of like communication breakdowns can happen is this, one person assumes and the other person wants the opposite. It doesn't, and then even the mental health channel, the way that we've been able to support each other as full humans who are also really good at their jobs and care, and we're all just here to help each other be better, and learn, and it's okay not to know everything, and that is rare and special. I think, as a society, we're hopefully moving towards that being more common, but that's something that is really magical and special about the support driven community that I have found and feel really, it's just like a warm hug of like, okay, like this is, this is a group of people who are genuine and want to truly help each other, through whatever it is. And so that is really, I've seen that. I know that we have a ton of channels. We have like, we have a few different types of channels. So there's like the ones that are like support operations or knowledge management that are more about like specific topics
Functional
that,
stuff.
fall in that. Yeah. And then we have user groups. So like one of the biggest, most popular channels is the Zendesk user group. And that's just Zendesk people helping each other. Like it's people who use Zendesk just helping each other use Zendesk, which is awesome. But we have other user groups for other tools and things that aren't as busy or are really kind of dead. And that's okay. It's just not what they need at that time. It's just not what they need. And then we have the like fun off-topic channels, like all the fun stuff. But it's super and so it's super interesting to see the channel engagement also correspond to like whatever, like it's also about the outside thing of like what are the tools, what is the culture around that tool, what is, that can then translate in, and then we have the intercom channel, and that works well too, and then we actually have some intercom people in there actually like engaging with their users in there, which is cool. And so there's different levels and different types of engagement that occurs. And so I think, to answer your original question of like, how have I seen it change over time? I think it's really just ebbed and flowed through what was overarching and happening in the industry. I mean, right now, over the past, especially the last few years, the job seekers channel and the job board channel is huge, because tech is going through it. And, a lot of customer support people are affected by this. And so there's been I've seen a lot more activity in there because of what's happening, and also a lot more activity, people supporting each other. And that's huge. And so I think it's kind of, the best thing I would say is that you have to stay flexible. I think you start with, if you try to hit this completeness of like every possible thing anyone could ever need, you're not omnipresent. You're not going to like be able to foretell what anyone is ever going to need. It's, it's the completeness trap. But I think the key is start with a couple, like, as you figure out, how do you want people to interact with this? Do you want them to only be professional? Because that's what makes sense. You don't want any off-topic channels, because that's just not something that makes sense for your community. Or maybe it is. And so maybe then you have a balance of, we have X number of like whatever specialized channels for working that we need. Then we also have these fun ones. And then we just tell people about them. When they join, let's have an automated message that tells them about a couple different channels to get them started. So they can at least kind of get initial lay of the land of what's going on, what's happening. And then it's, the key is to stay flexible. Is to, the moment you stop listening to your community at large and the people that are engaged and wanting to do it, overall, is the moment your community ceases being good and existing and happening. And, it takes, I think that's really like, you need to stay flexible, and you need to always be open to listening and pivoting as needed as things come up for your community and what they want. If they want a channel, I made a Swifties channel this morning because we got a new Taylor Swift album, and we actually got two, which is what, and people are going to talk about it. And like, I created a space for that, and let's do that. And if that channel goes dormant, it happens. Like, but it served its purpose in the next week of everyone getting to like chat and have that community and do the thing and have that space to connect. And that's good. Not everything has to be forever, but everything should have some sort of purpose behind it. If you're creating this channel and the spaces to connect, don't just create things because you think you need to create things with no plan, because that is just the surefire way for them to get no engagement.
And also discourage them, right, from future engagement, because when we talked about earlier about, lowering the entry point and making it, getting that first value to where they'll start to build those relationships. If they join a channel, it's completely a ghost town. And then maybe they post something and nothing happens. They're like, oh, but I see like 50 people join this channel, but nobody said anything. What's going on here? It gets a little bit like discouraging in a sense, and then it discourages them from doing it in other channels.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And I think that's true. You want to try to, to point people to channels that are active, so they can see and really start seeing that behavior modeled for them of like, oh, hey, wait, oh, this is like actually, okay, cool, I can do this. Like, oh, okay, this is actually interesting. People are having interesting conversations. Huh, okay. So they, they get that exposure and can build that confidence that we talked about.
I think one of the other things that you mentioned, the last thing I'll say in this sense, is one of the other things that you mentioned was, it's those relationships outside of forums and those connections. People are talking to themselves, which is great, amongst themselves in other places, and they're meeting offline and they're doing all these things. And I think you mentioned, it's really difficult to measure that. I think that's the unmeasurable thing about community that makes community so
Mhm.
special as well. And I
Yeah,
think that's what people also don't realize. They're like, yeah, a success for our community means this and this and this and this. But there's this huge gap of like, it's a human connection and emotion that you don't even know that that engagement is happening outside unless they tell you
exactly.
about it.
Yeah.
And I think fostering that is very, very difficult, but at the same time, exactly what you want. And it needs to be organic and natural and this kind
Mhm.
of thing as well, which start
Yeah, and I
simple
think
with it, see where it goes, let it evolve, be flexible.
yeah, and I think that's something that also, with the events we do, bringing everyone to, bringing people together in person tries to, you know, help facilitate that. And also, I mean, we get feedback of like, hey, if we all gather in a room, how does it go? Like, what happens? Are people engaging with this? Are people learning? Are people doing? And thankfully, yes. I think as an attendee, I went to a few of the support driven conferences as just a member. I went to 2016, I went to 2018, 2019, and they were like career changing for me in that I met a group of women who looked at me and helped me realize that I was way underpaid. I was not like the certain things I was doing. I like you don't know that you're not being paid your worth until someone is like, hey, you don't know, like you only know you don't know what you don't know. And it was someone who sat down and was like, talk to me about what you're actually doing, and okay, let's figure this out because like let's help, and like helped me fight for better pay and better title and better this at previous roles. And that was huge. And some of those women I don't talk to anymore, like I haven't talked to in a long time, but they still had that impact. And that is something that I think is really special about the support driven community, and that people will have those conversations with you, the hard conversations, and in the guise of helping you. And that's really special. And that was something that, getting to go to a space and then be, on this other side of it, of now I'm helping create those spaces and what works and what type of thing do I want to do. And it's truly rooted in the community itself is full of such good humans who genuinely just want to help each other. And so one of the ways that I describe it, compared to other gatherings you may have or more salesy gatherings or other things, is, the fundamental expectation in a conversation when you meet someone new at a support driven event is, how can I help you? Versus in another environment, what can you do for me? And that is such it may seem subtle, but it is such a fundamental difference in interactions that enables genuine connection and deep connection to happen so much faster. If someone is sitting there and doing it and having it happen, and you're immediately connecting in this vulnerable place, but it comes from a genuine point, that is magic. And that is the type of space that I felt so lucky to get to create. And that's the energy that the community brings and has online. But that translates really powerfully to in person, of people as well. Like any of our speakers who are speaking, the audience is not an audience of, explain to me why I should care about, like you sit there and you're like, prove to me why I should listen to you, is what some audiences are when you're up there. Support driven audience is, awesome, you're up there, I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
Just
I I gotta say I can't wait.
I
I'm really gonna
know.
try to make it out one of these times. I was looking at the photos from the leadership summit when the gallery just came out, and I saw
Yeah.
so many people that I know online and have relationships and I've met virtually like this,
Yeah.
just cackling in photos and laughing and just having fun, which I like taking the relationship offline in that sense,
Mhm.
and really making that connection in person just is so different.
It
And then
is.
it's going to be like, finally, we get to meet. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Yes. Like I've met a couple of
It's
people locally.
truly, yeah,
I've met a
it's
couple of
truly that
people
way.
locally out of support driven as well. And it's a really, really cool
Awesome.
experience just being able to say, wow, face to the name. And, you know, we did
Mhm.
a thing, we talked a lot, but hey, you're here. That's awesome. And it
And
also makes
that's
for a different environment.
it really does, and that's something that the magic of the community as well is we are so active online throughout the year. And that effort means that even if somehow a leadership summit or an expo is your first step into the community, like maybe this is just it, you don't know about it, you're into it, which happens. This is true. This is how, like, we have many new people every time, and they come in, and then the connection they made in person actually holds throughout the year online. And that right there is so rare. As someone who has gone to many other conferences and many things throughout my life, the ability to continue that relationship and that conversation, that connection easily online means that like it's like I know you for 2 to 3 days and then bye. Like, which is still meaningful. Like, you still connected into the thing, but it's like having that opportunity to foster a longer term relationship is just magic to me, and it's something that I is just like I just look at it in awe when I see it happening. And even for myself, that's why I'm here, and it's how I ended up in this spot that I'm in right now with as a director of events. I was just an attendee, I was just a community member, and Scott and I were talking about it, and I have events experience, and we were like, hey, let's try it. And um and it's been really great. And so, but it's really, really amazing to see the community really grab on with both hands and make truly the most out of a situation of being together for 2 days a couple times a year, and then put that effort in to continue those connections online. And that I so respect the community for that, because that is intentional, that is takes effort, that is, and that is something that people want to genuinely connect like that, and that is just magic to me.
I think this could just be a love letter to the support driven community. We love you.
Seriously, yes, it is, yeah, yes. I love, the community and the people in it, and there's just there's such a variety of people in it, but what all fundamentally comes down to, we just want to help each other and connect, and that is powerful.
Definitely. It's huge. I really could talk like forever
I know,
about this.
we can go so long. I have a few more minutes if there's anything that you wanted to hit or wrap up on. So
No, 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 definitely. I
okay.
would say just one last question and then
Yeah,
we go from there. It's a question I always love asking people because they're always like, huh, interesting question.
I love it.
Um, what's what's one thing that you've learned over the course of your career, not just in events or anything in particular, that you still really hold to today that you stick to?
Ooh, I love this
Ah, that's it.
question. Oh, ooh, ooh, which way do I want to take it? I love this. Okay. Um, Fundamentally, treating people with respect and appreciation every time that you see that they have helped you is never a waste of time. And it
Hmm.
is something that being intentional around thanking people, recognizing the effort that they have put in, and doing that publicly if you can, but at least privately, one-on-one, and making the point to say thank you, to see them and make sure that they know that they are seen and heard and appreciated for their work and for who they are as a human, all the things. That is something that will never be a bad thing to do, and will
I love
always and will always, like, it's like the pay it forward or whatever, but it's always something that you know, I mean, I'm lucky in that it's just my personality of like, I'm just going to be like, yes, thank you. You're amazing. Yes. Like, oh, this is great. Oh, but I've done it to you. Like you've done it to me. Like, which is awesome. But I think about it and I think about if someone says that to me and recognizes the effort I've put in, how good does that make me feel? And I'm like, I want to do that for everyone I work with or interact with. And how can I do that? How can I leave positivity behind, but not toxic positivity, but like genuine, hey, I see you, thank you. And like you brought value or what, whatever the thing is, it's really, how can I make sure everyone has a warm fuzzy and feel seen and heard? And I'm not always perfect at it, but it's we're all humans, but that's how I try to approach life, and that is something that I think has really helped me in my career as someone who I've always worked with volunteering, like in some aspect, and people just do it because it makes them feel good. And like I mean, and the community is community run. So like, like it's not a big old corporate office over here. And being able to genuinely interact and do things with people and make them feel appreciated for their work is important and is something that everyone deserves.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and experiences and everything. I'm sure that the community also feels the same way and really sees and appreciates everything that you do as well, for them
Oh,
and
thank
being
you,
able to
Neil.
foster it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I love talking about this. We should just like chat all the time, please.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about how it goes with your community. Sounds like you're doing really great stuff already, and I think it'll be good. But no, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.